Hello, hello. Welcome to Developer Office Hour. All right, we'll get started in just one moment. I forgot to launch my soundboard, but it'll be up in a moment. Okay. I think we're good. All right, so let's get going. So welcome to Developer Office Hour. If you're here, let me know in the chat. Say hello. And hey, Funky Boy. So Developer Office Hour is where we, if this is your first time or you're new, this is where we answer questions from the forums and Discord, or frequently asked questions or questions that come up during the week about Omniverse, Python, USD, and I come on here, answer them live, show you some code examples. All of the code that I show is available here in this repository. And it's all dated and everything, and you'll find the link in the description of this video. If you're watching from the future, in the description of this video, you'll find time-stamped links to the different questions, so you can just jump ahead. And also, once these questions are archived, they'll be added here to this Omniverse FAQ, so that you can search through here and find anything you find you need. Oy, action graph. Maybe I don't have any action graph ones yet up here. But yeah, there's that there. Also, this is part of our NVIDIA Omniverse community programming. We have different live streams and different events through every week, and you can check out our ad event calendar to see what's coming up, and you can also add this to your calendars or add individual events to your calendar so that you get those reminders. Lastly, our Omniverse Community Insider program. This is just a form that you fill out. You can fill out whatever you want to share, and then you can save it and then come back and add more information. But this is an opportunity for us to get to know you. Tell us about what sort of applications you use and how you're using Omniverse. And that way, when we have opportunities for community members, we can find, okay, who's an expert in Houdini that uses Omniverse. We also have, for example, early access opportunities where if we were trying to test a particular feature, we can find some good testers from the community to try out those features early. So that is the Insider program. And let's get started. Open up here Yep. All right. First question. How do I programmatically add a Python script to a prim? This is using Python script component. We did this last week. I had it right, but there was one bug, so I just want to re-record it. It'll be fast. So here's the example from last week. Last week, I messed up this path here, and I forgot the user's portion of it. So it was adding the path, but it wasn't executed anything because it wasn't finding this file. So I went ahead and redid this here, and we can talk about it a little bit. This apply scripting API command, I found it from here, the commands window, commands history. And if you were to add, say a prim, and I want to add a scripting component here, I can say add Python scripting, and you can see here that it ran these commands in order to do that. So I just went ahead and copied that and added it to my script. I'm going to delete this so that I get a fresh cube to run my script on. And I should show what the goal is here, right? It's going to add, when you run that, it's going to add this section right here. with this property, and then you can add a script by browsing to it. So let's come over here and we'll recreate it, and then we'll run my script. So we've got some imports that we need here. We're running this command and I've hard coded world cube. So make sure you change that to whatever prim path you need or variable that has it. I've added the refresh script property window command here just because that's what the history had, but that's just gonna refresh the property window. You may or may not want that or need it. And then I'm gonna add the property to this prim. So just getting the stage, getting the prim object by the path, and then I can get the attribute. This gets added by the command, which I'll show you how I got this name in a moment. I'll just run it and then we'll cover that. And then I get the value from that attribute. And this property may, if there's no scripts attached to it, it will return none. Otherwise, it'll return a VT array, which is a special USD array. So I'm just checking, is it none? Then let's use an empty list. Otherwise, let's just convert that VT array into a Python list. It's easier to work with. And then I'm just appending. Once I have that, I have a list, it's either empty or has stuff in it. And I just append mine. And I set the attribute again with this new list. So let's go ahead and run this. And if we look over here now, we have our cube, and here's our script attached. And if I run it, I press play, I get the printout from my script. So that's all working properly this time around. And this is how I know the name of the attribute for when I do the get attribute. If you hover over any property in the property window, it'll give you the attribute or relationship name. So that's it for Python scripting component, how to add one programmatically. I know this was a bit of a review from last week, but any questions? Alrighty. Moving right along. Question number 2. What are the criteria for a valid prim or property name in USD? All right. So this came up because you might write a script, or you might try to type something in here for a prim or property name, and you realize, oh, well, why I want to say cube number 1 or something, and it adds an underscore at the front. You might also want to do something like blender my dot cube, and it adds an underscore instead of the dot. So what are the restrictions? Why, I want to know how to conform my data properly for this, or at least to know what to anticipate. So that is in the USD documentation. This is a requirement from USD, and there's this function here in the string utilities called tf make valid identifier. So this one is valid identifier, and it just tells you if your identifier, if the name that you're using to identify something in USD is valid, and they let you know here that it follows C and Python identifier conventions. So it has to be at least 1 character long. It must start with a letter or an underscore, and it must contain only letters, underscores, and numerals. This will change with the UTF-8 updates when those come, but for the most part, yeah, the way that you would name your variables in code and C or Python are the rules that you would follow for USD naming. Any questions about that? I think this was a great question, just because you take it for granted, you kind of just follow along, but but it is good to know where this came from, and also how to, if you needed to either check if an identifier is valid because it's coming from a user. That happens, right? That's why we fix stuff here automatically when you type something invalid. You would want to use that make is valid identifier and or make valid identifier. This would just immediately fix it for you. So something to look out for if you're accepting input from a user on how to name prims or properties. All right, let me know if you have any questions on that one. Otherwise, I will move right along. All right, and then one more, and then we'll move on to any questions that you may have. So, question number 3. How can I swap a prim's materials using action graph? All right, this one's going to be a little bit longer, but should be a good one. So, got my cube here, and I'm going to do a new one just because I've messed around with that one enough. And then I'm going to create some materials here. I'm going to do this octagon, and then I will also do this wood material. Okay, so I have 2 materials. I want to be able to swap between these, or maybe I'll do 3 just to make it a bit more interesting. All right, there's the bricks. So we're going to create an action graph. And then it's over here. Make a new action graph. And the main component here will be write prim material. This takes a prim material path and a prim path. So the path to the material that you want to apply and which prim you're going to apply it to. So materials, if you don't know, when you apply a material, all it does is it adds a material binding relationship like this one. So all it's saying is here's the material that I want to apply to this prim. And so then the renderer will figure out what to do from there. It'll read the material at the appropriate time and then all of its attributes and figure that out. But all we do in USD when we're authoring is say here's the path to this material and set it on this relationship. So we have that, and I'm going to do find prim. So my idea is I'm going to have, and this is where it can vary depending on what you're trying to achieve, but what I'll do just to show it one way would be I'm going to have, this is by default, it activates when you press the A key. I'm going to have it cycle through the materials under a certain scope, in this case just looks, and it's going to cycle through and assign those to the cube. So here's find prims. I'm going to tell it where to start looking for materials. This is the root prim path. It's going to be world looks, and that's all I need here because I'm not too picky. You can say specifically what type of prim you're looking for. You can also say recursive. That would mean that if I had if these were nested more, it would go through all the nesting and find all the materials. So depending on what you're needing to do there, what your organization is within your stage. So that's all I should need for that. And then I'm going to do array index. This copies an element out of an input array. So it's going to give me the element based off of the index number that I give it. So it's kind of like a get on a list or in an array, get by index. So I'm going to give it my array, which is the print paths. And I think we can do some print text here, right? Just to validate that along the way that we're doing this right. So when I press the A key, it'll fire. And we can add a toString here. And first we'll get the print paths and print it out. And I'm going to print this out to the screen. So when I press A, it lists all three materials. And when I do array index 0, what is this? This one's a little funky. It return. Oh no, I need to plug it into toString and then plug it into text. And so now when I press A, it just returns the first one. Okay, so part of the way there. And I suppose we could just plug this in now into the material path and it'll change it just to that one. I can also drag in this cube. This is one that I want to affect, and I'm going to say read attribute, I think. Does that give me a print path? No. Read bundle. Also not my favorite. So I will, you could do this a number of different ways. You could add a variable to your graph and say which one you're affecting. What I will just do is I need a path, so we'll do a constant world cube. Okay. And now when I press play, it should change it to the octagon. Nope, because I didn't connect it to actually fire this one. Right, so this one's not going to fire until I connect it to the execution. And now it changed. And now I'm stuck on that one until I get it to do the cycling. So for the cycling, we're going to add a variable, which is going to be our index. Which, so we're going to go through this list in order, and we're going to keep track of which index in the list we're on. And this is going to be an integer. All right. And we're going to read it. And we need to write it. And I'll explain that in a moment here. And then there's an increment node, which just, in this case, it's going to add 1, but I can increment by any value that I want to type in there or connect there. And now this is my index, right? And I'm starting on 0. I could start on -1, maybe, if I want to, because I'm incrementing immediately. I'll start on -1. And now, now we get the same effect. It's using index 0 because I've taken this and then I increment it by 1 and it gets a result to 0, and then I'm plugging in 0 here. So I suppose if I change this to 0, we should get the next one, and it swapped. So now you saw, what you see here is that it doesn't increment on every press because on the next key press, it's going to go back and it's going to reread this variable, and it's always -1. So after I've incremented it, I need to write it back out. And I'm going to get rid of this print for now because we don't need it anymore. And so we plug this into our variable that we're writing out. And the variable name is already filled in for us from when we dragged it in from here. So now on release, we will also write out that variable. So now we're out of range. So let me reset this. And right now it's at 9. Let's reset this to -1. Nope. Just a moment. Yeah, I won't be able to reset it because this write is. Let's disconnect this for a moment. I'm gonna just reset it and press play. All right, well, I will we'll actually fix it. So what I need to do is I'm going to use modulus to then reset this back to a range that works for us. What's happening now is I increment it, it goes out of range. I only have 3 materials, so when it tries to find the 13th material, it's not going to be there. So reconnect that. And we do have a modulus note here. Modulo. Okay. And I'm going to move these down. We're going to plug that into there. We're going to take this, we want to mod by the length of our array. We do have a node for that. It is called get size. And so now we get how many paths we have, how many materials, and we're gonna divide by the length of that and get the remainder. And that should do it. So now, hey Nandu, and now we've got our cycling. So we can see here now the value that gets written down, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. And that's it. So if this is if you don't know about modulus, what it's doing is it's going to take the input and divide it by the second value. So, and then it gives you the result. So 3 goes into 2 0 times, so the remainder is 2. 3 goes into 3 1 time, but the remainder is 0. And so you would loop that way, like that, infinitely. I don't necessarily need to write out the result of modulo. I could just let it increment infinitely. Let's see what that looks like. See, now it's growing up to the variable that I'm writing out, the index, is growing up to larger numbers, but the result from modulo will always be 0, 1, 2. So the likeliness that you'll overflow, that it'll be too big is not very likely, but just for good form, it's better if we write out that clamped value between 0 and 2. All right, Any questions about that? I need to save out this graph. Okay. All right, let's move on to your questions. Funky Boy's already got a question in here. Can you make OmniGlass emissive? A transparent material like OmniGlass emissive? I do not know. My guess is not. And Funky Boy, I can ask the devs, but I'm sure you've already tried everything that I am likely to try. So let me ask the developers, and I'll get back to you on Discord. But yeah, if I were to apply this here, create a plane. And I'm sure, did you try the different renders? Is the other question. Oh, mess with the material graph. Well, if the material itself doesn't support it, I don't think the graph is gonna help you out there. But one thing to try out is try the different renders and see what results you get, because it may vary a little bit between them, especially as far as supported features. Let me see here. Does it even have? It doesn't have emission on this material, right? So yeah, I would say no, but I can double check. Have you taken a look at the more robust kind of Uber materials like OmniSurface? Because that has index of refraction and it has emission. But I don't know if just with IOR you can get to a glass from here. Yeah, let me find out. Oh, I am gonna try it. Just briefly, since you said you haven't tried it yet. Emission. No, not weight. Density. And color. Do I need to crank that up more? This just always ends up me being just guessing. All right, I won't mess with it anymore. Still Tax is asking how to set the aperture policy for the viewport with the new UI. It should be here. So you have fill viewport, you have the custom resolutions, and what was it called in the old one? I know what you're talking about. Nope. Yeah, it was one that would say whether it was horizontal, vertical. It's gonna lock and unlock the ratio. And we just have fill viewport. But you should also be able to select and if it's not there, it could be under preferences. Yeah, I'll need to check on that one too. It's definitely still possible because I do it in code or using the Python API, but I don't know where that moved to for the UI. So I will check. It's not going to be on the camera. That would be silly. Yeah. I will check. Let me know how we can get a hold of you. Camera f-stop not. I don't think it's, if we're talking about, it's, what I thought what we're talking about is when you, like the letterboxing on the viewport. So should it expand to fit the horizontally, or should it fit to expand vertically? And in some case, it may crop either horizontally or vertically, and you may want that or you may not. Is that what we're talking about? Let me know if that's what we're talking about. But yeah, clarify what you're looking for so that I can ask the right question, and let me know how I can get a hold of you, whether you're on Discord or if you want, just ask that question on the forums, and we can follow up there. Yeah. So that we may have gotten rid of it because to make it simpler, but yeah, I can find out. Oh, render options. What's that? Ah, okay. I won't. I will stop. Viewport, fill viewport checkbox. That's only one of the options. There was another one. So that one will do that. Actually, before it used to actually I think we changed this. There were some complaints about this. This might be what you're looking for, because we changed it to only let me see. Because this isn't fill viewport. Fill viewport. Oh, there it is. It's just still. Let me switch this back to real time. Yeah, fill viewport is not it, but it's one of the two options that we used to have. All right, next question. So you wanna set the display color on a mesh. Yes, that is possible. The only thing is that it is a prim var. It's a special type of attribute that applies to points or faces, and so currently in USD we don't allow you to edit that interactively or by typing in. So you can do it using code. I can show you how to do that, but otherwise we don't have an interactive way to do that. We do have the that we have a tutorial on how to paint display color. If you wanted to do that, that's our method right now for doing that. I can link you to that one. And if you want to know how to do it using code, let me know and I can show that. There's the link for the YouTube. Yash says yes please, but which one do you want? Code? Is that the yes? Well, if there's no other question or clarification, I will show the code. But if there is another question, I can do that. Exactly. Display opacity is the same thing. You can see here, if you hover over the attribute, it says it starts with the prim vars namespace. That means that that's a prim var. So it's meant to meant to vary across the mesh. You can make it constant though, but if you want to just set we can do that. If you just want to set a display color, but you don't want to vary it across a mesh, you can do that. Well, still programmatically, but it's easy. I suppose you could do it interactively. Let's see. If I add an attribute, call it, no, hold on. What am I going to call it? This will be a good test. Discord link. Let me do that really quick. NVIDIA Omniverse. Cool. All right, let's see. This will be a cool experiment. And it would be valuable to folks. It's called display color. It's a color 3F, right? This one you can see it's an array, but if we make it not an array, then it becomes just a regular attribute. So attribute, display color, color 3F, and I wonder why we have this by default. Anyways, uniform will be safer. Now I need to see where it set it. So there's my display color. And now theoretically, I should be able to change it. And if I look, I don't know how we support this in RTX. I may also just be totally lying because I thought this would work. Do we have a material? We don't have a material binding on this. So that's not it. Blah, 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 blah. Well, that light's working. But still no display color. So that is a mesh. One other thing I wanted to check is just using this a shape. No, what did I do? Add attribute, display color 3F uniform, blah blah blah. Oh, and making that custom could be a problem. One more try. If you guys have any other questions, please ask. I know I'm just noodling around here at this point. So I've got that one. I've got that one. I feel like I should get rid of. All right, I'm going to save this. And I'm going to open this in USD view just in case, just as a sanity check for me here. Open, downloads. Display color is a color. I'll check the documentation right now in a moment. I don't remember if there was a setting to say use display color. Maybe because I did it in uniform. One more check. Remove, add, attribute, display color or not. Okay. And then, nope. All right, let's look at the documentation really quick. USD geom, display color. So you can create a display color attribute. And this is where I was trying to somewhere around here it says if there's an attribute, it will use that. If there's a prim var, you can see here that there's a create display color prim var, then it will use that one. But I don't remember where it said that. It might be under USD prim vars glossary. So I will do one more thing. But again, if you have another question, please interrupt me. This is your guys' time. So I want to answer the questions you have. USD geom, mesh, get, world. No, I need to get the stage and all that. Ugh. USD, get stage. World cube. And then once you have the prim, you can then do USD geom dot mesh and pass in the prim. And that'll give you a mesh object. And then you can do create display color adder and set it to 100. That may need to be an array or a tuple. Somebody on the internet corrected me, so now I say it right. Tuple. How much VRAM was my Isaac Sim session using on Tuesday? I don't know. I don't know. I could try again. Okay, we're gonna delete that one. Now this is should create it the right way. Type mismatch. Oh, once a vec3 array. Okay. But odd thing is that it's trying to create a prim var. GF. Oh, are you sure they're not you're not thinking of display opacity instead of display color? Display opacity I would expect to, but I think that's a float. Display color, all it is RGB. Yeah, see, it's trying to do the prim var instead of the display color attribute. Maybe I dreamt this. Maybe this isn't the thing. All right, I will dig into this on my own time. Any? Yeah, the format is an array of tuples, of 3-component tuples, because it's RGB per per vertex or per whatever varying rate that you're doing. And then display opacity, and I suppose, no, I mean, display opacity and color have that. It's a very specific purpose. You can do arbitrary prim vars and use them in shaders if you need to have other attributes that are varying between vertices or components. But those would be custom. You wouldn't use display color or opacity for that. Yeah, opacity is a single float, array of single floats. Can you explain the USD geom point instancer? What do you want to know? I did that, the bookshelf, the bookshelf series, which goes through using it. I can do a smaller example here if you want. Yeah, we can do that. Otherwise, I can link you. I know you already know about the bookshelf. Yeah, great question. Okay. So the question is, why would you use USD geom point instancer? Why not just copy things, create more prims? And that's a good question, because obviously this can be kind of bad, right? Because these are unique objects, but you could you can set this as instanceable and then duplicate it, and now you have instances. And these are you can't edit the content or any children of these, and you shouldn't do this actually. One thing to keep in mind about instancing, this goes for both instanceable and also point instancer, is you want to do it on an X form. So I'm on the layer window. That's why that's not working. So my asset, for example, and maybe that just has a single cube in it. But in order to avoid potential bugs, you want to do it on an X form. But then I can't. Once it's instanceable, the advantage is it uses less memory and better performance. But then I can't edit the context. So it's the pros and cons of instancing. Now, so that's one way to do it, and you're totally right. You could do instanceable, but you could also do a point instancer. Do we have an easy way to do that these days using the UI? Be under particles, which I don't have. I don't quite have in this app. Should I try to code it? We're going to do chat GPT. Let's see. Let's see if I can do this. No, chat GPT is at capacity right now. I don't use this enough, but maybe it happens all the time, or maybe I have the worst luck. I don't want to mess with the OmniGraph. I just want a quick thing here. So let's see if I can do this. It wants stage and path. I did it right. Well, that's what I gave it. What does it want? It wants a prim. It wants a prim. Oh, I need to define. All right, we have a point instancer. What this is you give it a prototype or multiple prototypes. And in this case, I would choose my group here again, choose an X form, and it'll instance everything under it. But to avoid issues, use that. And you can have multiple, and then you can tell it, okay, from these prototypes, which IDs, these are ID'd 0, 1, 2, 3. Actually, that would be proto indices. So you tell it for each point, which index do I want to use? And this is just an array of indices to the prototypes. You give it a position, which is again an array. So the first instance is going to go in location 0, 0, 0. It's going to use index prototype index 0, and IDs you can are optional, but you can also identify each one uniquely, and you can give it a rotation. Each point can also have an individual rotation. So that is what that would do. But you are losing flexibility. There's for an artist, for a typical user, there's so much value in being able to come in here and say that these are all instances. You can either set the first one to instanceable and then duplicate, or we have this edit duplicate, instance, and that will reference it and instance it. Either way works. But there's so much ease of use for most users to just be able to say, actually, this one I want it to be different. I'm going to move it over here. All of these can be uniquely positioned, but still instanced. But for this one, I want to add a sphere on top. So I uninstanced it, and I am going to put a cone on top of it. And so here's this asset. Go back, parent it there, move it up. So here's this asset that I decided to do something different for it. This would include any modifications to any of its children, whether you're adding or removing things, or changing the visibility on it, or maybe changing the material on one of these. You would want to uninstance it and make that one unique. Can you modify the children of a point instancer? That becomes a lot harder, and so that's where you're losing power, or your users are losing power. What you need to do for a point instancer is you have to come in here and work with these arrays, which are not editable in USD in Omniverse right now. But you'd want to set one of these to invisible. You have invisible IDs. And then you would duplicate your prototype and put it in the same location and make all your changes there. So you need different tooling to be able to do that. So the philosophy is, if you're making a forest, can you solve voxel collision? I don't know, but let me finish this thought. The philosophy is, if you're making a forest, use point instancer for the leaves on your tree assets, and then use instancing for all of the, as you're duplicating the trees around, so that the things that you're going to be interacting with a lot, like the tree asset as a whole, you want your users to be able to have an easy time with that. And the leaves are maybe less critical for having to turn one leaf off. It's also much easier for end users to refer to, oh, this is the one that I want to modify is group 07 instead of instance ID 142. It's a lot easier to navigate and work with. So I don't remember the numbers that we gave, but if you're in the hundreds and thousands, you can use instances just fine. If you're in the hundreds, tens and hundreds of thousands, point instancer is a good idea. Yeah, start with instanceable, and then if it becomes unwieldy, you can switch that to a point instancer. Or if you know that immediately that your users don't need to interact with those instances, you need to just set it once and it's done. Then you can go ahead and do a point instancer. Admittedly, the bookshelf with point instancer was not the best example, but it was easy to do and to use, right? I would probably benefit from doing just instanceable prims that way. If I can find, let me get the numbers that folks were throwing around for point instancer. Feel free to ask any other questions while I look this up. And we call them, so one way that people differentiate it is they call it native instancing versus point instancing. Come on, I've almost got it. This was a really long thread, sorry. Yeah, they're saying less than 10,000, definitely native instancing. More than 100,000, definitely point instancing. 10,000 to 100,000 is a gray area, kind of at your own discretion what you think would be better for your users. There's another way to look at it. Yep, thank you, Renan Papachuk, for answering that one. For individual users, the maximum on the for the license for connecting to Nucleus is 2 users. All right, we are over time. I've got there was one more question about voxel collision. And I'm guessing, does that work with point instancer? A lot of our physics does work with point instancing, but I would check with the physics folks to confirm, because I've done at the very least rigid body simulations using point instances. What you do is you set the physics attributes on your prototype, and then when the physics run, it runs them. It will treat them all individually, but they will all have that attribution of rigid body. So potentially, yeah, you could do it with other physics things as well. But yeah, ask the physics folks on the physics channel to confirm. All right. Well, I hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Next week we are continuing with the OmniAnim people simulating humans, and I'll be digging into nav mesh solution that we have specifically, just to learn more about that. Thanks for coming, everybody, and let me know what you're working on. Oh wait, there's one more question. I missed it. I don't know anything about scene blocks. If you are on Discord or the forums, please ask on there, and the Isaac Sim specific questions. I will follow that just to find out what that's all about. But yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. And I hope you guys are doing cool things. Let me know if you've got something cool to show. I always love to see what you guys are working on. See you later.